Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cocktail Hour. Craig, very disappointed. No, that's fine. 2016 Duck, that's a good way to go. A little bit of Pinot. No, there's no peer group pressure here about having to drink whiskey or old fashions, but I hope we have some fun making them. So I've just been, hello everyone, by the way. Hello, Kay. Glad to see that you're excited to give it a crack. So the old fashioned is a cocktail that I think a lot of people are a bit scared of partly because of Mad Men, I think, because if anyone's watched Mad Men, they all got completely stonkered from sort of 9 o'clock in the morning on bourbon with a cherry in the top. And we probably don't need to live our best lives like that. But hello, Alison. Good to see you. I'm glad you've got the rye. I've got my bullet rye. That's what I'm using tonight. I have my cherries. Hang on. I'm not going to pull one out yet because it'll drip sticky stuff all over the place. I have my Angostura bitters. So this is how simple this cocktail is. Good. It's a good rye, Alison, and it's one of the few that you can get easily in this part of the world. So all good. Got my sugar. Jack Daniels is good too, Kay. Got my sugar. If you're a purist, you'll use a sugar cube. If you're a semi-purist, Alison, your cherries are not sticky. Okay, that's all right. Shell rocking the mezcal, tequila, and bourbon options tonight. Good work. Brooke, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that you're having a Pinot Gris. Good on you. Semi-purists will use granulated sugar, which is what I'm using tonight. If you just want to make it easy for yourself, you can use 50-50 sugar syrup. So we talked about this last time. I think we made cocktails. You take 50. So let's say you take 50 grams of sugar and 50 grams of water and mix them together, and that's your 50-50 sugar syrup. Brooke, I love that I'm sorry that I scared you. I think brown liquor taken in good measure, not too much, is very fun every now and again. Hello, Anne. Good to see that you guys are here as well. Your goodies ready for mixing. So I have also brought my I was waiting for the importers of this beautiful agave spirit to come on, but anyway, this is the mezcal that Kevin's and his business partners are bringing in, and I'll show you how to make a Oaxacan old-fashioned as well. Oaxaca old-fashioned. I've got a little tiny bit of tequila left there, so we're going to mix them together. If we're going to do that, you can use sugar, but even better is a little bit of agave syrup. So I'll pop those over on this side for the moment because that's not what we're doing straight away. What we're going to do straight away, and I'm going to get straight into it, but before I do, I want to show you a picture of someone. This is the person who inspired me to even try an old-fashioned, because this is my grandfather. I hope you can see him on the phone. Hang on. Grandfather, this is Archibald Kevrell McIntyre. He was my father's father, and he was a scientist, and he worked in New York for a little while at one of the universities there. Very good family history. But one of the things that he brought back from New York was a knowledge of the old-fashioned. And the way he makes them, way he used to make them, was a little bit different from any of the modern cocktail recipes that I can find. And doing some research going back, it looks like back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, the way that Archie used to make old fashions was more or less the way that civilized people made old fashions. And that was with a bit of freshly squeezed orange juice. So I've got my jug of freshly squeezed orange juice. I also have my orange peel for garnish. So I'm all ready to go. So let's get started. That's my old-fashioned glass. It's a very classic old-fashioned glass. Basically, what you need for an old-fashioned glass is it needs to hold your cube of ice. And I've got these big, semi-big blocks of ice. So if I put them in that way, it fits in the glass, which is good. Hello, Zach and Jack and Hannah and Toby and Jenny. Oh, hi, Jenny. Lovely to meet you. So that's my old-fashioned glass. You can get prettier ones. The picture on the mail out was a very sexy glass, which I kind of covet, but you don't. I've got enough glasses already. These are mum and dad's. They've had them for a long time, so they work really well. The main thing is you need to have a nice strong glass, and it needs to have a flat base because we're going to be doing some smushing in the glass. So get your glass, get your sugar. So I started one before because I wanted to just see how. So that's half made. I wanted to see how long it would take for the sugar to dissolve. It takes a little while. So I'm using about half a teaspoon of sugar in here. You can use a bit more if you want it to be a little bit sweeter. It's totally up to you. So if you've never had an old fashioned before and you're a bit scared of the sort of bitiness of the bourbon or the rye or the Jack Daniels that you're having, maybe put a little bit more sugar in. But we're also, if you're using orange juice, that's going to soften it out a bit. And if you don't have orange juice and you don't want to have it as a short drink, get some soda water and top it up with that, and that'll make it a little bit more approachable as well. But a half to 1 teaspoon of sugar straight in the glass. It's probably not quite enough. So I'll get my other packet. Alison, you'll never go back. Just don't have too many tonight. If you really like it, maybe 2, but don't go the 3rd one because you'll have a terrible headache tomorrow and you'll blame me and you'll never drink old fashions again. So the old fashioned really, Angela, g'day, gin, fancy smoked tomato chips. Thank you. It's a lovely shot of Archie, isn't it? It's he's one of those people that you can actually find a bit of info on him if you Google him. So he was, I'm going to put one of my cherries in here while I'm talking. So cherry in on top of the sugar, and then Angostura bitters. Okay, old-fashioned version could work. Angostura bitters. Now you put quite a lot. You want to saturate the sugar with bitters, and if you've got a sugar cube, that's kind of easier to see when it's saturated. But it's quite a lot of bitters. So don't be afraid to go relatively heavy on the bitters because you need your bitters to actually dissolve the sugar. I've got a little jug of water, but you could use your orange juice. And I've just got the original Angostura bitters. I think orange bitters would be okay as well. A little bit of water in there just to help things dissolve. You can use a spoon to dissolve it, unless you've got a sugar cube, or if you want to be tricky. Now, this is not a muddling stick. This is a citrus press, but the other end of it works very well for muddling. So here we go. I'll talk while I muddle. Muddling's basically you smash the cherry a little bit. I'm going to put it down on the table and give it a bit of a smash. I'm not going to break this glass like I did last time. Who was watching last time when I was muddling, and when we were doing mocktails, I managed to smash the first glass that I was using. These glasses are made for muddling in though. So then you give it a big stir and you mix it all up, and you don't want any of that sugar to be undissolved. It's really important that you dissolve the sugar. So just kind of have a chat amongst yourselves. Hello, Peter. Where did I get my cherries from? Well, I have this brother who gave me 3 different jars of maraschino cherries for my Christmas present. So thank you, Peter. This is the 2nd jar that I've opened. These are the English ones. So I was complaining to Pete that I hadn't been able to find maraschino cherries anywhere on the peninsula. So he gave me 3 jars. Okay, yeah. So a drop of orange juice will help to dissolve the sugar. If it's still not dissolving, you can put a drop of whiskey in as well, and that'll help to dissolve it too. So there we go. I think it's just about done. Yep, that looks like that sugar's all done. It smells of cloves and all sorts of wonderful things because of those bitters. So you've got a smush of bitters down the bottom. Then you get your rye or your bourbon or your Jack Daniels. 1.5 to 2 jiggers. It's a 30 ml. That's a 30 ml jigger. Andrew's using a spurtle to muddle. Good work, Andrew. I like a man of innovation. So because I'm making this for Richard, I'm putting 2 jiggers in there because he likes a nice strong old-fashioned to finish the day off. Give it a bit more of a stir with your jigger, and you should be able to, it should be nice and clear and a lovely sort of orangey brown colour. It does smell awesome. Now, at this stage, you can just add your ice block. Here we go. This is when Kate splashes things everywhere. Add your ice block. Beautiful. Orange twist. So that's just orange rind that I've cut off an orange. And the idea with an orange twist like this is that if you bend it backwards really gently, you don't want it to split, but you just want to loosen some of the orange oil from the skin, and you can see it kind of squirting out. If you're a really tricky bar person, then you can light that on fire and then you get a little bit of caramelized orange. I don't know if you can see, I can just see the little bits of orange oil squirting out. You kind of want to squirt it over the top of the drink, and then you put your thing in, and that's your classic old-fashioned as you would probably get it served in a bar. Let's just get that looking nice in a bar today. What Archie's, hello Cotty and John, how you going? Oh, good, but there's quite a few people watching along with a glass of wine, so you're not Robinson Crusoe tonight. So what Archie's brilliant addition was, so we've come back to this, which is sugar, bitters, and whiskey, and a cherry, is to add the juice of about 1/2 to 1 orange. So it's not, you can add as much orange juice as you like. I would say add a little bit first, taste it. If it's still too strong for you, add a little bit more orange. You don't want to overwhelm it completely with orange juice though. So I'm just going to put a little bit in. As I was asking Dad, do you remember how much orange juice Archie used to put in? And he said no. So then I use my spoon, and you can see it's not very orange yet. And I remember in my child's eye that this had, I think aspergillus for a traditional wooden stick for stirring porridge, isn't it? Is that right? A little bit more orange juice, because I think Archie would put a little bit more orange juice in there. What do you reckon, Dad? Does that look a bit like one of Archie's old fashions? Yeah, a bit more? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, well, I'll leave this one like it is and put an ice cube in instead and hand it over to the boss. There you go, Richo. That's my Archibald Keverill McIntyre old fashioned. There you go. Cheers.
Thank you.
Is Jill coming in?
I think so.
Jill's coming in as well, so I better not start drinking this one yet. I'll put some orange juice in this when she comes so that she can tell me how much orange juice she wants. But in the meantime, actually, I'm going to have a little sip. Shh, don't tell her. Put some orange juice in. So, nice. Cheers, everyone. I bet they do, Anne. I reckon because it's got orange in it anyway, whether you put the orange juice in or if you just use your orange garnish, that's delicious. I think the orange juice really kind of just mellows it out a little bit. So if you had a chance to taste it before you put the orange juice in and then put the orange juice afterwards, then you'll get a sort of a sense of hang on, Craig, I'll answer that in a minute. A sense of how it's going to taste with and without the orange. So that one's for Jill. I'll just put that over there. And I should have brought 4 glasses. Richard, you wouldn't be able to get me another one of those glasses, would you? Yes, please. I'm going to make you now a Oaxaca old-fashioned. And before I do that, I'm going to answer Craig's question. So Craig wants to know why he's smelling orange rind in his Pinot and whether I'm just suggesting it with my orange rind. And it's possible because the power of suggestion is quite strong. But I will say, Craig, that our Pinot Noir often has a little bit of an orange rind or blood orange character to it. So it might be just kind of thank you, Richard. It might be just bringing that little bit of oranginess out to it. Jill, here's yours. You have to come and get it. Jill's just sat down and started eating chips, waiting for the bar service. Thank you, Richard. All right, so the other option, and really what I wanted to sort of myth bust is that sort of idea that an old-fashioned had to be made from bourbon or rye. Today, that's what people imagine when you say, if you go to America and you order an old-fashioned at the bar, then it will be at just any bar, and they're much more sort of cocktail savvy at sort of basic bars in America. In fact, you're much more likely to get a decent old-fashioned than a decent gin and tonic or glass of wine at a lot of bars. You'll get a version of what I just made, probably without the orange juice. Thank you, Alison. But the name old-fashioned comes from the sort of description of the most old-fashioned way of making a cocktail. So spirits on their own are quite harsh to drink, and to make them taste a little bit nicer, the first cocktail that was invented was just a mix of your spirits, bitters to add a little bit of zhuzh, sugar and water. So the sugar and water was to kind of make, sweeten it up a bit, make it a little bit more palatable. And the water, obviously, to make it a bit longer, not so strong, so that you didn't get too drunk too quickly. And this kind of goes back to the American tradition of drinking really cheap spirit. Particularly, it particularly sort of burgeoned during the Prohibition days when alcohol was illegal, but there was a lot of bootleg spirit out there. It was pretty rough spirit, so you needed to sort of mix it with something to make it taste better, palatable at all. And so this old-fashioned cocktail was a way of making the rough spirit taste a lot nicer. So you can actually use any spirit you like. As I said in my email, you can use gin and maybe put a bit of Campari in there as your bitters rather than Angostura. When you make a Oaxaca old-fashioned, you tend not to use bitters or a cherry garnish at all. So what we do is we take our old-fashioned glass, we get our agave syrup because that gives you a little Mexican taste to it. You can use sugar and water if you want to. Now, the problem with these squirty bottles is they tend to squirt too much out. So I'm going to use my spoon because I don't want more. Agave syrup is really, really sweet. And so you can make it too sweet really easily. So I'm going to use my spoon to make sure that hopefully I don't get too much agave syrup. And you're not going to be able to see it because I can't hold three things at once. So the glass is down on the table, spoon here, squirty bottle here. Whoop, there you go. Perfect, Kate. 1 spoonful of agave syrup. So I just pop that into the glass. Now, because for the sake of us doing, we're not going to make bootleg Moorooduc wine spirit moonshine, Craig. You didn't even come for the old-fashioned. You just stick to your Pinot, mate. I'm going to put a tiny bit of Angostura bitters in here. I've never done that before for a Oaxaca old-fashioned, but, we're all friends. I can always decide not to drink it if it doesn't taste any good. Just a little bit, though, not quite as much as for the other. And just give that a little stir up. Just dribbling on myself. Right, so for this one, you use 1 jigger of tequila, preferably Reposado, which is aged in oak. This is the Oaxaca old-fashioned K. Yes, I can never spell it. I always need to Google tequila or mezcal old-fashioned, and it comes up on Google Oaxaca. So the name comes from Oaxaca is a town in Mexico. That's where most of the mezcal comes from. So that's why this is called a Oaxaca old-fashioned. So 1 jigger of tequila. in. Put the lid over there. 1 jigger of mezcal. And mezcal is like tequila, but it's made from a different type of agave. It's not blue agave, and it's from a slightly different part of Mexico. And they tend to be quite smoky in their expression. As I say, Kevin and Emily, who are usually on, I haven't seen them tonight. Are you there, Kevin and Emily? Probably not. This is Kevin's, sorry, you can't really see the label very well. We're getting lots of reflection. There we go. Metoro. Hopefully one of these days we'll be able to align. Our stars will align, and we'll be able to get some of that out to you if you want to buy some. So if you're interested in trying it, let me know. I'll just stir that together, and look, you've got that lovely colour again. Just stirring. I'm really just stirring the agave syrup into the liquor, and then I'll get my ice block. Chuck it in. There we go. Ice block. Doesn't that look pretty? Different colour. Oh, Jill, I forgot to give you your garnish.
I don't need it. I just take it out.
Excellent. Oh, Shell, spicy street tacos. Good work. The old-fashioned with orange juice is transformational. I'm very glad. So I'm going to do a little orange garnish on my Oaxaca old-fashioned here. Unfortunately, my agave spirit was a little bit warm because I left it in the car for a little while. So just let my ice block do its job. But that's a really nice little drink as well. Cheers. Delicious. Right. But that said, I actually don't feel like a Oaxaca old-fashioned tonight. So I'm going to make myself another old-fashioned. So actually, maybe I'll put some orange. So many options and decisions. So how's everyone going? Are you enjoying it? Your little old-fashioned. Shell, did you guys have a crack at the Oaxacan old-fashioned as well? Because you said you had all the stuff on board. So, and I don't know what would happen if you put the cherry in the Oaxaca, but it'd probably be fine as well. You know, you can play with these things. It's really just about getting that spicy character into the spirit. And because tequila and mezcal already have quite a nice spicy character in them, then you don't need as much extra. You don't need so much bitters, and you don't need.
I'll have 4 more.
You'll have 4 more, Jill. Do you have to do anything tomorrow? Have you finished that already? This is the problem with these cocktails. I was talking to a friend who usually joins us on Drinks with Kate. I won't mention any names. And I said, "Are you joining us for cocktails?" And they said, "No." I said, "Oh, why not?" "I'm not very good at cocktails," was the response. And I said, "Oh." I said, "Well, you only have one." And this person said, "No, not possible. Once you start, it's very hard to stop." So as I said to you guys before, just be a little bit careful. Drink lots of water in between your cocktails, because I don't want you getting a headache tomorrow and then hating me and the old-fashioned cocktail as a result. How's everyone's week been? Anyway, as I muddle away here. It's a bit rough when I'm making multiple cocktails. I don't think I'd make a very good cocktail waitress, really. I'm a bit slow. It was really nice to see a whole lot of you guys here last Sunday. That was a fun event, doing a little bit of having a look at the winemaking, tasting some unfinished wine, finding out that unfinished wine's not very delicious. Zach and Jack. Cold summer version of mulled wine. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the Angostura bitters help to do that, and the orange juice. So, yeah, it's the other thing that you just need to be careful of is because of the sugar and because of the orange juice, it's quite strong, and it'll slip down very easily. So that's another warning. It's another good reason for making it into a long drink with orange juice or with soda water rather than a short drink, because the short drink disappears very quickly. Bourbon and rye are also really great in a sort of a milk punch kind of a thing, sort of like make a vanilla milkshake and stick a jigger or two of bourbon in. It's pretty delicious. There we go. That's my old fashioned for me. Garnish it up. Jill, would you like to try this Oaxaca old fashioned?
No. I'm old fashioned.
You're old fashioned? You just like your whiskey? All right. Cheers, everyone. Yum. So, as I said, I do like bourbon is also fantastic in trifle, correct, Kay? I think that's a really good way to use bourbon. It's got a natural kind of sweet perfume to it, which sort of helps. Jeff, are you enjoying the mezcal? Good. I'm glad. You made one of those? So those actually, when I'm in California, I've found a couple of and it's just one. It's just one, and not drinking them all night, because you're completely correct. You can make yourself very unwell with spirits and dairy. I was just remembering when we sell a little bit of wine in Texas now, and I went to Austin to meet the sales team. Sorry, I'm just rearranging my things. So I was in Texas, and I had a day to myself, and it was really hot, and I'm wandering around, and I was a bit jet lagged, and I found this fantastic cinema that did. So it was an old fashioned cinema, and they screened like classics from all over, and they have a menu that they bring you food, they bring you drinks, whatever during the movie. You just kind of have to order it, and it's like it made Gold Class look really, really cheesy in comparison. I love Gold Class, but this was old fashioned classic, awesome service. So I went and watched what was it? What did I see? What's that? Oh, my brain's not working. It's a really famous old sci-fi movie. First thing of the third kind. That's I'm so terrible with names of things. Anyway, it was a great movie. I'd never seen it before, which is slightly embarrassing. If anyone can work out what I'm actually... Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Thank you, Kay. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was fantastic. I'd never seen it before. I had my whole dinner brought to me. I think I had like a hot dog with chili and blah, blah, blah. And then I had like a bourbon vanilla milkshake for dessert. And it was awesome. Yes, everyone, thank you. Thank you. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And it was great. I had such a fun time, and it was air conditioned, and I was very tempted to have a second milkshake, but I thought, no, I'll never sleep. So I was very grown up and didn't. So it was very good fun. Austin is such a fun place, isn't it, Craig? So our distributor in California moved to Austin, Texas, because he couldn't afford to buy a house in California. And so now he's living in Austin. His business partner's still in California. So we're selling a little bit of wine in California, selling a little bit of wine in Austin, Texas, and I'm looking forward to them selling a bit more so that I've got an excuse to go back and visit again, because it's a very fun place. Snacks. I just went for the classic plain chips, and Jill's hoeing into hers and having a lovely time over there, aren't you, Jill? All gone? At least Polly's not demanding them tonight. There's something really sexy about the colours of the old fashioned as well, with its little bit of orange going through it and the little cherry at the bottom. Angela, how do they make maraschino cherries and those green ones? I don't know about the green ones. The maraschino cherries, I think they're a specific type of cherry, first of all, and they soak them in sugar and water and maraschino liqueur, which is like a Czech liqueur. That's the traditional way of doing it. This one is probably not. So this is not your very traditional classic. So this is more like a sort of a bar version of a glacé cherry. They've called them cocktail cherries with stem maraschino flavour. So the maraschino liqueur, you might remember back to when we did daiquiris a little while ago. Oh, yum, man, that sounds delicious. Whiskey and duck pate. When we did daiquiris, we used maraschino liqueur, and that's a special liqueur I think it's from Czechoslovakia or somewhere. And I'm really very badly researched on these things because I just kind of buy them and use them when they're needed. But the liqueur itself is not very, I'm not sure if it's got cherry in it or whether it's just another flavour that goes with these red and green ones in the CWA recipe. Oh, I don't know. Oh, yeah. Very, very different from the glacé ones in the CWA recipe. But do they make green cocktail cherries as well, Angela? I've never seen them. You'll have to illuminate me on those. The cherries themselves. So Jill's telling me that the cherries are a different breed of cherry from normal cherries, and then they're soaked in a special syrup. So they also are known as Luxardo cherries, and they're the sort of if you see in sexy cocktail photography these days. Oh, well, that makes both of us, Angela, and neither of us know. Oh, well, we'll work it out. We'll do some research. But the Luxardo cherries are really dark black in colour, black-red in colour. So they're obviously, a different cherry, but they're soaked in maraschino liqueur because Luxardo is a brand of maraschino cherry and liqueur. So they're quite hard to get. And these quite hard to get, I think, on the Mornington Peninsula, but maybe I'm just going to the wrong supermarket. Anyway, they look pretty. They're not essential. You can make an old-fashioned without a cherry. You can make an old-fashioned without orange juice, but it's much stronger. Really, all you need is your spirit of choice, sugar, bitters, and you can buy Fee Brothers, F-E-E Brothers. It's an American brand, but I've seen it here in Australia. I think they've got it at Dan Murphy's. They actually have an old-fashioned bitters. Oh yes, Cotty. If you have a look, often there's quite a lot of cocktail articles in food and drink magazines these days. It's becoming a bit of a thing. And we're having, all these new restaurants opening up in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, basically, that are sort of focusing as much on cocktails as they are on wine these days, in a sort of old glamour style American kind of homage, which is quite interesting. If you have a look at Vogue, is Vogue entertaining? Those sort of food magazines, there's often some very sexy cocktail photography. When I say sexy cocktail photography, I'm just talking about drinks looking really delicious, not any, kinky stuff with naked people or anything like that. So, or named after them, exactly, Zach and Jack. Gimlet is a very good example. And if you go to Gimlet, then you should have one of their gimlets because they, that they've sort of named their restaurant after their signature cocktail. So you'd expect it would be pretty jolly good. And they make their own lime cordial. So a gimlet is basically gin and lime, but most people will make it with Rose's lime cordial, which is fine. But at Gimlet restaurant, they make their own lime cordial, and it's apparently out of this world. I haven't had it yet. So Zach and Jack, it was pretty delicious, was it? Thank you, Kay. A maraschino cherry is a preserved sweetened cherry typically made from light-coloured sweet cherries such as the Royal Anne, Rainier or Gold varieties. The cherries are preserved in a brine solution and then presumably sweetened with a sugar syrup. Thank you. They look really fake, don't they? They're such a weird colour. But it's one of my slightly secret joys is to have a cherry in my drink. It's one of those kid things, when you had a cherry on top of your ice cream sundae. I still like to have a cherry. I like to have a cocktail with a cherry in it every now and again. It makes me feel like I'm getting a little extra treat once I finish drinking my drink. It's the same with martinis. I'll always have a martini with olives in it because then I've got something to eat as well as something to drink. It is like plastic surgery for cherries, Kay. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So what's the consensus? I think most of you who've had your old fashioned with orange juice, the Archibald old fashioned, it sounds like you've enjoyed it. I hope that maybe some of you, Craig, you might want to have a crack at it one day. Maybe not. Peter's just made his muddled cherry and orange juice edition. Excellent. Thank you, Pete. Yeah, it just makes it a bit more civilized. It kind of, when you have what passes as a classic old-fashioned these days in a bar, it just feels like someone's just kind of put some bourbon in a glass and added a bit of sugar, and that's about it. And it feels pretty fiery. It feels pretty strong, and it does take you back to that. I mean, you look at it, you watch things like Mad Men, as I said before, and they were just basically drinking bourbon neat and maybe adding a little bit of. That's all right, Craig. Anytime that you feel like doing it, you can give it a crack. Alison, a rye sour, that'll be nice too. So that's the other thing. Once you've got your basic ingredients, you can have a play around with all of the different things. So whiskey sour. If you think back to when we made margaritas, that's the same as a whiskey sour, but with tequila or mezcal. So a whiskey sour will have your lemon juice rather than lime juice, whiskey. If you feel like it's some egg white so that you get a froth on top of it, give it, and some sugar syrup, and give it a really good shake. So you get that lovely kind of white foam on the top and a lovely creamy whiskey, lemony, sugary drink underneath. It's very good. Cotty, there is cocktail food matching. It's not something that I really specialise in because I don't really specialise in cocktails either. I think they're fun, and in lockdown, because I couldn't. Usually I will wait until I'm out and about to order a cocktail. I was never really a big cocktail maker at home, and the cocktails that I make are fairly basic, old-fashioned style cocktails, nothing too fancy pants. I can't be doing with 1,000,001 ingredients, but Craig, you could give it a crack with an Isla whiskey. Sorry, I'm getting distracted, Cotty. I'll finish answering your question, then I'll come back to yours, Craig. And Sarah, I'm glad that you're enjoying sipping slowly. Very good. That's the other trick with an old fashioned. You just need to sip it slowly and talk a lot in between. The cherry absolutely takes in the bourbon barrel flavours when you muddle it up. You get all that bourbon in there. So I'm all sticky. Sorry, my fingers. I've got like agave syrup all over me, I think. Let's pop that over here. So I was just finishing saying, so Cotty was asking, Cotty was asking about cocktail food matching. Some things, yes, some things not so much. If you think about it, think about where the cocktails and the spirits come from. So if you think about vodka, for example, which is a spirit that I tend to avoid after a bad experience with it when I was younger. But if you go to Russia and you go out for a meal, then they have all this, traditional food and vodka. And vodka needs to be drunk with food because they drink it neat. So that's part of the whole Russian tradition and Polish tradition to drink vodka and eat food. Cocktails like this in America, if you go to New York, you'll have as many people in a fancy restaurant drinking cocktails all through the meal as you have drinking wine because of Prohibition, the cocktail culture is still really strong in America. But I don't think that a lot of them think about matching their cocktail to their food. They just kind of drink their drink and eat their food. I think old fashions are quite hard to match to food, which is why I just said just have some chips and nuts and things. But you could. I was in America and had a night somewhere very boring, and there were no decent restaurants around, and I just went to the bar/restaurant in the hotel, and they had a terrible wine list, so I ordered an old fashioned and I ordered some sliders, and it all worked really well. So An old fashioned works quite well with sort of very classic American flavors, sort of ribs, sliders, that kind of thing. So yeah, it is a whole nother thing, and we can probably have a bit more of an explore into cocktail and food matching. But yeah, people absolutely do it. Craig, there's a cocktail called penicillin, which sounds awful, but it's actually quite good. I think Pete's had one. I'm sure when I was out with him not too long ago, and you use you you use an Isla malt to give it that real kind of peaty kind of flavour. Makes it taste a little bit medicinal, but in quite a yummy way. So look up the recipe for penicillin cocktail. You might enjoy that. I don't think Scotch would work brilliantly with an old fashioned because you need that slightly sweeter bourbon. Bourbon's good because it's got that real kind of sweet American oak barrel flavour. Old fashioned and plum pudding. That's a good one, Zach and Jack. But you can have a play. I think if it was quite a gentle Scotch or a blended Scotch rather than a single malt, then it could work really well. And certainly a Scotch can work in a whiskey sour or a Rob Roy, which is a traditional Scotch-based cocktail rather than a bourbon-based cocktail. So have a bit of a play. I think you could have fun. Canadian Club could work. Alison, what do you think is weird? I'm reading the comments backwards, and I'm just gonna first of all, I'm gonna say, don't forget to register your interest for the movie date that Alison has proposed. I'm really keen to go and see the movie as well, so I think that would be really fun. At Como Cinema, those of you who are interstate, it might be a bit of a hike, but yes, Alison, I agree. Cocktails all through the meal are very weird, but yes, follow the link or the QR code and let us, if you're interested in coming to see the movie, let us know which day and time works best for you, and we'll get it organised. I think it'd be really awesome. What else? Angela. I can tell you, Archie was very cute about the whiskey. He would only buy it to make old fashions, and it was usually sort of, I would say it's probably the cheapest bourbon. Richard will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was probably the cheapest bourbon he could buy at the local bottle store. He called it boot polish because that's what it smelt like. And he said, it's awful on its own, but it's great in this cocktail. So it was an ingredient for him. He wasn't really interested in the quality of the whiskey, and that, I think that also relates back to this old-fashioned idea that we're adding things to the whiskey to make it taste better. So you don't need a high-quality whiskey, and in fact, you probably wouldn't use a really high-quality whiskey. These days in Australia, bourbon, if you want bourbon or rye, it's quite expensive because of the import taxes and the taxes on the alcohol. Pete's gone to Maker's Mark. I'll often use Maker's Mark because that's probably my favourite reasonably priced bourbon in this country. Canadian Club, yes, Craig, that could work quite well. Angela, so yeah, I'd certainly not hipsters and micro distillers. I remember the label. It was like one of those really classic kind of square. It was it wasn't as sexy as that bottle, but it was more square like that than the pretty bottles that we get these days. And it had like a yellow label on it, but I don't remember what it was called. But I'm pretty sure it was pretty cheap and nasty whiskey. So I think that would be absolutely the case. Make it taste better with all the other things that you're adding in. So yes. What other question? Shell, I know this is the problem. Upping our cocktail game, getting yourself cocktail ready at home is quite an expensive job. The only thing I can say to that is if you just keep them for special treats, or when you have, if you decide to have a cocktail night rather than a bottle of wine night, then it could be quite. It's quite a fun way to sort of mix things up. But yes, it can be a very expensive project. So you need to pick the cocktails that you like and just make sure that you've got what you need for that. I had some friends in England that I swapped some cocktail recipes with, and I did sort of really sort of easy stuff like margaritas and daiquiris and things. And they're like, oh, this is the Seven Maids Are Marching, and it would have like limoncello and sake and this and that and cream of val. I'm like, I'm not buying all that stuff just to make one drink once, which I'm probably not even going to like. But that's right, Alison. The spirits last and last, so you can leave them in the cupboard for years and years, and they'll be fine. I'm thinking that maybe the bourbon that Archie used to use was called something like Black Crow, but that's maybe just a crazy childhood memory. Craig, no, we don't donate any barrels to whiskey distillers. We basically use our barrels until they're dead. But if anyone asked us to, we'd probably sell them our barrels, for a relatively low price. When our barrels are finished with here, we usually sell them to people. We've got some furniture makers who buy barrels from us and people who like to cut them in half and grow flowers in them. So we sell them for $50 for half a barrel, $100 for a barrel, I think, basically. You're true, Cotty. If you do keep them too long, they evaporate a bit, and they can kind of go a bit flat sometimes, your spirits. But did anyone ever invest in those little glass marbles that people put in their spirit bottles to bring them up to the top so that they didn't evaporate? I'm not sure whether they ever worked, but they always looked really pretty in bottles of spirits. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because we're just past the 45-minute mark, and it's been really fun. I'm enjoying sipping away at my little cocktail, and I hope this is. They do absolutely, and they make great cheese platters. And you can also, if you've got the right little tool that kind of zooms them around, you can make tea light holders with the barrel staves, and they kind of either sit kind of curved that way or that way, and they look really cool. It's been so fun, hasn't it? It did go fast. I'm glad you loved the cocktail, Kate. I hope everybody else did too. Jill's clinking because she wants another one. Craig, I don't know how we get it to you, but I'm sure we can sort something out. Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week for the 2015 Robinson Pinot, which is the first wine in the second box. Be lovely to see you then. Don't drink too many more old fashions tonight. And if you do, don't blame me if you have a sore head tomorrow. I'll see you all really soon. Cheers. Love you all. Yeah.